Welcome to Nintendo Ninja News. I'm your host, Chris Dices, and we're here to do a review of InkyPen. They are the comic book app that you can get on the Nintendo Switch. It's exclusively on the Nintendo Switch for the time being. They're looking to release other things. Now, it's basically like a subscription model like Netflix or Spotify or Apple Music, where you pay $8 or $10 here in Australia to get all the comic books that you like, and I have a collection of them, and you can go and read them per month. So we're gonna go on with the good things about it, and then we're gonna run through quite a few of the problems that they've got. So the good things about this, and we'll just show you off what it kind of looks like. As you can see, it looks quite nice in terms of presentations and things like that. Now, we're just going to show you a little bit how it works, just roughly on the camera. So you can see that it's sort of works like that, which is nice. And viewing the comics is pretty good. I had fun sort of reading some of the comics and the old current Garfield strips on there, which was good. Felt it was good going through that. It has a nice small range of comics, which is nice, and that goes pretty well. And I felt the comics were there. It's a good screen for the Switch, and it's great to be able to play video games and do comic books and read comic books on the go, on the bus and things like that. And once you read one, it does download the comic for you, so you can go on the bus with no internet and do things like that. You can even download them to your Switch. So if you don't have internet, you're on the bus or out and about, you can read your comic books to your heart content. Unfortunately, in its current state, there isn't a lot to love about InkyPen, and there is quite a few glaring issues. Like for starters, with the comics, you can change the mode to this one, which is fun. It's okay. It's pretty big, but there's no portrait mode. The absolute perfect way would be to do it portrait mode. I can't see an option that does it. You could go to the settings. There's nothing in the settings. Just basically change your email and password and payment details. The biggest glaring problem that everyone is talking about is you can't see any of the comics. When you download it, it's free. It's free to download. Of course it is. It's like Netflix. It's free to download, but you can't see any comics, and you have to pay up in order to actually see what they have on for offer. That is the biggest no-no that you do if you're going to be doing a service like that. That is the biggest turn-off, and I've seen lots of people go, I'm not going to pay for something I can't see. Which makes logical sense, isn't it? It's like going on eBay and they don't show you any products, but they say, hey, there's something nice for $50 you would like. Please give us some money, and then we'll show you what it is. Seems really silly. Now, in their defense, the reason why they... And the other one is there's no free trial. There's not even a 7-day trial. We're not asking for 30 days. Even a week trial just for people to have a look at it. Now, they say on the frequently asked questions, why no free trial? And they say, right now the service is in its fantasy, its beginnings. It's very obvious, that is. And part of our philosophy is ensuring artists and publishers get paid appropriately for their content. That said, a free trial is something we would love to offer if we can prove our model works in the longer run. I can understand where they're coming from. I'm a writer. I can understand that they want to pay their people and support them and all that sort of thing. But they're a small company. They're a small little business. And it's a bit like putting the horse behind the cart. They're not big enough to really show that they can provide a service without showing anything that they are doing, and then ask for $8 a month. And the problem is, if most people are saying, no, I'm not going to subscribe because I can't see what you're offering, then no one gets any money, and no one gets the support. So it really makes it really redundant, that sort of why no free trial. So if no one pays up, no one gets money. InkyPen doesn't get paid. The publishers don't get paid. The content creators who draw these comic books and the writers don't get paid. So that's not a good enough excuse, I'm afraid. It's not going to work in the way that it is. Now, they have said on the website, and they actually had to put this on Twitter because no one knew what they were buying. There are some comics such as Aliens, Mass Effect, The Witcher. You also have IDW has Judge Dredd, Star Trek, Transformers, things like that, which is pretty cool. You also have the old comics like Archie and Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is probably a bit more modern than that. And then you have your strips such as Peanuts, Garfield, which is a personal favourite of mine, Calvin and Hobbes and things like that. But you have some really cool ones such, you have Sonic the Hedgehog there. You have Appleseed, which is some of the manga. They do have the indie section, but there's no titles. There's nothing there. So it's just a blank catalogue, which... Don't put up a blank catalogue. It just really makes it look unprofessional, unfortunately. They do have manga. It's only 6 titles. So, it's very, very thin. And when you look through these different comics and things like that, for example, it only has like 1 or 2 comic books to it. Like, the collections are not really huge for quite some of them. The other problem, apart from... you've got to pay up. There's no free trial. You can't see any of the comics that's there. Even if it just showed the collection of comics on the screen, and if you try to click on one, it says, oh, sorry, but you've got to pay for a subscription. Or even if they showed a few freebie comics for you to read, like a small little portion of the site that has a free comic of Garfield, a free comic of Sonic the Hedgehog, or a free comic of, something. You've got to give them something. You can't use the eShop credit for some reason. I don't know why, but quite a few people that I've seen complain that can't use the eShop credit, and there's no PayPal option. So even the payment systems are a bit odd for some reason. If you've got eShop credit, apparently you can't use it. Don't know why. There is no 3-month or 6-month or yearly plans. There's nothing like that. So every month you've got to pay, at least for Netflix and for other services you can pay, in advance and things like that. The catalogue itself is a bit lacking. I looked at their press kit to see if there was any information about their comics. There's nothing there, just a few cute little pictures. Even the logo just looks a little bit cheap, to be honest. I'm not a fan of the logo or the look of the cartoon character that they have. It just doesn't really present a really... Not mature. I'm not saying that it's like young child, but it just doesn't scrub up, especially when you've got all these little issues here. And the trailer, if you look at the trailer that they've put together, all it shows is a bunch of people reading a couple comics here and there. Doesn't tell you what the comics are. Doesn't really give you a vibe of what the comics that you could expect to see. It's just a trailer with a bunch of people holding a Switch and you're seeing some random comics on the screen. Doesn't really illustrate a really good point that they're trying to do. So even the marketing and promoting is not very effective. And it's just, yeah. And at the moment, they're on the Nintendo Switch for now, exclusively. They're going to do more stuff like that. They've even acknowledged on the frequently asked questions that manga, very little at the moment, but they are working on this at the moment, and they'll try to do things in more countries and things like that. There's a lot of potential for this, and I know it sounds like I'm trashing it, but to be honest, at the moment, they kind of deserve it at this point, because it does feel like a half-baked product. And I know that startup businesses tend to start off very small, but when you don't get the real basics right, like even the payment method, the main one that we use for eShop is just not really there. There's no trial. You can't see the comics. You have to pay up straight away in order to see what you're actually going to buy. It's like a lucky dip. You know, you got to pay $5 and then you get a present. You just hope it's the comic books that you want to read. And that makes it difficult. But they should have done this from day one, not just patch it in like in the world of video games where a half-baked video game is released and they promise that they will patch up the mistakes later on down the track. This should have been the case for this. And they should have gotten these things. Even if they provided a trial for 7 days and you were allowed to see the comics on the main screen, I think a lot more people would have dived into InkyPen than the current reception they're getting of can't see any comics, they're putting their hand out for money, there's no free trial, I'm not going to bother, and just delete the amp. So, and I can understand they're trying to support the artists and publishers, but they're actually doing a disservice to them by putting in this system where you can't see any comics. So at the moment, I have to give this a 5 out of 10. It's pretty average service at the moment. There's a lot of potential there. I love the idea of comic books, especially if you put it in portrait mode, hint, hint, because I can't see an option for it. Would have been great. Just when I'm going, oh, cool. Sonic the Hedgehog, swipe, swipe. Would have been great, but just those sort of things. And then they might respond and go, oh, yeah, we're going to do that later on down the track. It's like, no, you should have done this from day one. Don't push it out before Christmas Day and try to get the subscriptions rolling in, because you're just going to give yourself a bad look. And that's the problem. You know, there's a lot to like about InkyPen. There is great potential there, but currently at the moment, it's not looking that great. You know, first impressions count. And that's where they fall apart. Great potential, poorly executed on day one. So they need to fix these things up. Because there's some cool things about it. I like the idea of reading comic books, you know, on the bus and at the park. Play a few video games and, you know, Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. You go, oh, I'm a bit tired of that. I might just read some books. But in its current form and fashion, it's just a 5 out of 10 for me at the moment. It's pretty average. And if they had even a smaller catalogue, the mark would have gone even further down. You know, if it didn't work properly, yeah, it could have been really bad. But at the moment, they got to fix those problems. And hopefully that they do. So, that's it for me, and I'll see you next time.